Okay, Shadow of the Erdtree trailer dropped. It's here. It's finally here. I never doubted them for a second. Don't put it in the newspaper that I ever doubted them. We're just going to do a real quick and dirty sort of watch through of this trailer, and I'm going to point out some things that I thought were really interesting and just kind of give you my thoughts. You know how we like to roll here. This is a super lo-fi setup. I don't even have sound for this trailer. If you want to watch the trailer with sound, you can just find it on YouTube, I guess. But here we go. So this is the beginning of the video here. So right off the bat here, this line, I've heard people saying this is Gideon who's saying this. I don't know if it's the same voice actor. It kind of sounds like him, but clearly talking about Mikola here, and everybody's sort of guesses that we were going to be able to access the DLC through the cocoon in the Mogwin Dynasty Mausoleum was correct about that. I think that's been pretty much 100% confirmed now that that's how you get to the DLC, which has a lot of interesting implications. They say, whoever is saying this is pure and radiant. He wields love to shrive clean the hearts of men. That word shrive is really interesting. From Software loves to use archaic English words and phrases to kind of give their characters and worlds and dialogues a little bit of flavor, and I really appreciate it. The word shrive is an old verb that means it was for a priest to hear someone's confession and then assign them a penance, right? Like, you did this bad thing, you need to go make it right. You know, you took the Lord's name in vain, give me 50 Hail Marys or whatever. That was, to shrive was for a priest to hear that confession. But that doesn't make a ton of sense with this sentence here. He wields love to shrive clean the hearts of men. I think they're kind of actually reaching back farther into the history of this word here. It's originally from Latin, from a Latin verb that meant to write or to inscribe. So I think essentially what they're saying here is just sort of repeating what we've known about Mikola for quite some time, is that Mikola is able to compel others to love and service and devotion. Essentially, he can kind of wipe your mind and your heart clean of any other devotion or affection or loyalty you have to anyone else, and replace it with just this undivided loyalty and love for him. Which, as you know, the narrator says here in just a moment, there's nothing more terrifying than that. Because think about it, you know, if someone who you love sort of fell under that spell, they might not even remember who you are. They might not even remember your name. It sort of destroys a person's entire personality and their identity and just replaces it with devotion to this god. So we've got that cool shot of the cocoon here, and then just an incredible opening shot here with a bunch of stuff that I want to point out. Just the design of this place looks so interesting, and it looks very compact. So it looks like there's a lot of stuff sort of packed into a small-ish area here. This interview that Miyazaki did with Eurogamer yesterday, he said that the area is larger than Limgrave, but kind of around that same size, the area for the DLC. But it looks like it's a really dense area, and this is basically what we saw from the that teaser image that they tweeted out like almost a year ago now. We have those little ghost graves, we have these fields of wheat, but we can also see here these big castles. There's a cathedral back here that almost looks like the Cathedral of Manucelis, where you end Ronnie's quest line in the base game. And then up here, we have these big, like, billowing sheets or something that are descending from the sky, like miles long, just sort of draping over this whole land. And those look very similar to what Marika has near that Grace checkpoint in the bedchamber. And this is kind of symbolism that we've seen in the game before. So then we get another shot coming up here of this sort of open world area. All of these like arches and these graves, very reminiscent of that image that we saw. But there is, here, let me go back. So we can see here something that almost, the design reminds me of Celia a little bit, like the architecture, just the design of that place reminds me a little bit of Celia, and it looks like there's almost more cloth or something draping over it. Got these big roots sort of coming out of the ground. And we get just this incredible vista here. Nobody does it like From Software. Their vistas are on point. They just keep getting better at them. And let's see if we can rewind it a little bit. We get kind of another shot of that area that we were looking at. And I can see what looks like, 3 or 4 dungeon type areas already. We have this big castle up here right by this tree. We've got this smaller castle. We've got a cathedral over here, something that almost looks like the Parthenon, maybe like a little town or a village over here. This looks like it's sort of more densely packed than the base game, which I find interesting. In that interview that Miyazaki did, he talked about wanting there to be more of a seamless transition between dungeons and open world stuff, rather than sort of like the hard divide that they had in the base game between those things. So I'm really interested to see maybe how their design philosophy and their world design has changed a little bit with experience. But we also see this tree that we saw in that teaser image seems to be pouring something into maybe a basin here. It's sap or amber or something like that. This is possibly Miquella's rune, but it also kind of looks like the Great Rune of the Unborn. It probably doesn't have anything to do with Rennala, I'm guessing, but it's like sticking out of the ground here. We've never really seen a Great Rune look like that before, so that's definitely new. And some new armor as well. There's so much cool new armor in this trailer. It looks like they're really going nuts with it, which I'm super, super excited for. Like this, right? Kind of ancient Roman gladiator Colosseum vibes. This design on the crossguard here looks very reminiscent of some of the designs in the base game that were associated with Saint Trina, with some of the other sort of flowing lion's mane designs that we had associated with Godfrey. And I mean, just look at this. It's incredible. Love that cape. Love the kind of the chest plate here. So we have an NPC saying, "In that forsaken place, blood must spill." This looks like Dark Souls 1 armor, almost. It reminds me of like the Iron Tarkus armor that you can get in Sen's Fortress. So that's super cool. I mean, I can already tell I'm going to be using this armor for PvP builds in the future, just because it looks super on point. But this NPC says, "Blood must spill, the blood of your fellows." And I mean, I'm a huge PvP nerd, and so I hope that means there's some sort of cool PvP content that we have coming. Only time will tell. But then we have some of these like Saint Trina's lilies in the background. Whoever they are, lying down on the ground. They're either sleeping or dead. And so I know there's something associated with sleep probably going to happen in this DLC, because it's all about Miquella. So a quick shout out to Quailag and her stream. I was watching them a little bit yesterday. Somebody in her stream pointed out that this person is dressed like a Carian noble. They're wearing the same headpiece and clothes as a person who's depicted on the Dectus medallion, and also somebody who's depicted on the Carian inverted statue. So that statue you take it to the Divine Tower of Liurnia, it turns the tower upside down. Whoever this is, they look like that, and so there might be people from kind of the lands of the base game who are either trapped here or they've come here like of their own will or something like that. We've got more poison swamps, which we knew this was coming. We knew we were going to see it. I'm guessing that this is probably underneath the great tree that we see, sort of tangled up in the roots underneath the great tree. And just another cool armor set here. It's got like these very reminiscent of like the crow feather garb from Bloodborne. And there was already something that looked like this in the base game that had like crow feathers associated with it. And so, I mean, I'll be interested to see where we pick that up and who we get that from. And then we have this painting here, which is maybe, for me, like one of the more interesting parts of this trailer, because this guy is important. Remember his face. We're going to see him again in a second. But I want to know, who these people are, and especially who this woman is. Is she related to him? So Miyazaki said that this DLC has to do with where Marika came from before she became a god. She was from these lands of shadow, whatever they are. And so is this a depiction of her sort of before we've seen anything else about her? Or is this just somebody who's completely unrelated to that? Okay, so we've got a bunch of pots hanging from the ceiling here, and this is actually kind of a recurring motif in this trailer. These look like the warrior jars, like Alexander, like stuff you find in Jarburg, but they don't have like arms and legs growing out of them. They look like the trees that are planted near the pots that are planted near the minor Erdtrees. And so maybe this is sort of where that practice began of putting the innards and the remains of warriors into pots so that they could help those trees grow. This looks like a tomb. It has this, to me, it sort of feels like those tombs that we explore in the base game, but like remixed for the DLC. So maybe this is just, a legacy dungeon, or maybe this is just like a little side tomb that we can explore or something like that. I wouldn't put it past From Software to sort of remix that type of content for this DLC. Now this is, it's just so beautiful. It just looks so cool. Clearly another legacy dungeon. And maybe one that you just can't see from where you start, or that big vista that we had at the beginning. But up here is something that I want to draw attention to. So most of this game has this sort of like golden, orange, dusky, black shadow kind of like visual design to it. But there were some other images that were released of stuff that's not in the trailer. And it looks like once you get up onto these plateaus here, you've got green trees. You've got something that almost looks like Limgrave. It has a totally different visual design. And you're going to see that a little bit more in this trailer. This place doesn't just have one single look to it. It looks like there's almost different like biomes and things like that. So then somebody in the voiceover says they were never saints. They just happened to be on the losing side of a war. And I don't exactly know what that is referring to, but take a look at this Wicker Man. Holy cow. You can see it is filled with bodies that are on fire. And it has this motif repeated throughout it of what looks like omen horns. And then this in the center here almost looks like the medallion that the Dung Eater wears. And this is, again, something that you see a lot of in the trailer. There's a lot about the omen. There's a lot about the crucible. So I would guess that we're going to learn more about those sorts of things. But I can't wait for this boss. I mean, just look at that. So this is clearly a field boss. So something that you can just sort of run up to and fight. And I think we might be sort of on the back side of that tree. Because you can see over here some other, like, what is this? What are these? That looks like almost like a snowy area. Or just these big white spikes are coming out of the ground. But this fight just looks insane. Just looks really fun. We got a guy who's getting, he's having some time. I love this enemy. It looks like it's so annoying. Okay, so more stuff about like Misbegotten and Omen and Crucible. We've got this boss that looks super interesting. Almost looks like, how in like Chinese New Year, if you live in a city that has like a Chinatown or anything like that, you have people dancing in these dragon costumes, and it takes multiple people to kind of lift it up and dance around, and that looks like this, right? You've got two pairs of legs. You've got a few right here and a few back here. And I think somebody on Twitter pointed out, actually, it's two misbegotten. It's literally like two kids in a trench coat pretending to be an adult, I think. But he's got omen horns, and he's got a row of like human teeth and then a row of animal teeth here. And he's doing the big leap up in the air and slam down attack that From Software loves doing. Someday I'm going to count how many enemies have this exact attack, where they just like jump up into the air and then like slam down, and you have to dodge roll it. Shout out to this person wearing the I forget what this is called, but I love this armor set. It's cool. He has some kind of like smoke attack. Okay, so this is sort of where you can see, it's sort of hard to tell with this quality, but here's one leg. There's one leg, and then down here you can see other legs and arms. So there's one guy standing on top of another guy. That's what this kind of looks like here. So I'm guessing that at some point they will split apart and you'll be fighting two of them at once, and then maybe they come back together if it's like a multi-phase sort of thing. But I just thought that was funny. It's literally the joke about like two kids in a trench coat. And he has lightning attacks. And so I don't exactly know what that means lore-wise, but at least in the base game, lightning is associated with faith, and it's specifically associated with Godfrey. And so maybe this is, an omen or a misbegotten that was devoted to Godfrey in some way. Okay, so now we get to everybody's favorite boy, and I have a lot to say about this guy. His name is Mesmer, and he is talking to his mom. Now, just yesterday, in an interview, Miyazaki actually confirmed that this guy, Mesmer, is one of Marika's children. And somebody else on Twitter, I can't remember who it was, pointed out that there is a place in the Weeping Peninsula called the Impaler's Catacomb, and outside of it there's a little ghost that says something about, you are Marika's unwanted offspring. And so, it could be that they've actually been hinting about this and leaving some breadcrumbs and stuff, but they just, we didn't really have enough info to understand what it was. But this guy's interesting because as soon as we get this shot of him here, so just looking at the visual design of this guy, what do we pick up on and what do we know? The first thing that stands out to me is the snakes. And the snakes that are on him, and actually you can see later in the trailer, they're growing out of his body, have wings, or at least one of them has a wing or a couple of wings. So are these baby dragons? Are they deformed snakes? I don't know, but the snake is a symbol of rebellion against the Erdtree. In the Colosseums that we would have, some of the duelists that you fight in the duelist armor that you can get has some lore in the item description about how fighters who were supposed to be like the heel in the fight, like if you watch professional wrestling, there's a heel and a face, there's a bad guy and there's a good guy, and like you can choose who to root for, but the heel's job is to be hated and kind of to draw that hate from the crowd and be a person who the face is supposed to beat, or they have some sort of drama with him. But anyways, in these gladiator fights in the age of the Erdtree, some of these fighters would wear armor that had snakes on it, and they would basically be the heel in that fight, and it would be their job to just get beaten up or get killed. Because it was symbolically defeating this thing that is a symbol of rebellion against the status quo. And I think that has a lot to do with Rykard and the world-devouring serpent. It represents a different type of status quo, a different type of power arrangement that could usurp the power of the Erdtree and the Greater Will and the Golden Order. So he's anti-Erdtree. He has snakes. He's wielding fire as well, and fire was also something that was anti-Erdtree, right? It's associated with the giants. But it's also, it's the thing that can burn the Erdtree away to clear space for some sort of new power arrangement in the lands between. And his armor also looks a whole lot like the Drake set. So associated with dragons, fire, snakes, he is one of Marika's children. So possibly I'm thinking at some point there was a falling out between him and Marika. He was either banished here or he came here of his own will, maybe looking for something. And another thing that somebody pointed out on Twitter that I think is just crazy is like, look at this part of his weapon here that he has, this like sword spear that he's using. When you go to the mountaintops of the giants, right before the fire giant boss fight, you can find tons of giant corpses that have been impaled with huge spears. And a lot of those spears have a little crossguard design that looks like this. And so, when that war against the giants was happening, was Messmer a part of it? And after that war, did he do something to lose Marika's favor, or did he rebel against his own mother? So this looks like just a sick fight. His design is so cool, right? He's got the red hair that's associated with Empyrean lineage. He's got golden eyes, almost like draconic eyes a little bit, and one of his eyes is closed, which is a recurring theme with a lot of different characters. This battle here showcases, so Miyazaki also said there's going to be 8 new weapon types. So not just new weapons, but like new categories of weapon to use. And I think we're seeing one of those categories here, these dual daggers. They're like long swords, but he's holding them kind of in a reverse grip. So dual reverse grip, curved sword kind of thing with this really flowing power stance moveset. These enemies have omen horns here, and they're carrying this right here. So what is this? What is this thing that they're carrying? It's a candlestick, but it's also an image that we'll see in a minute here that it might represent something bigger about this place. Like the way the symbol of the Erdtree was to the lands between, this symbol of this candlestick, this tree with candles on it, might be that same sort of symbol or image for the Land of Shadow. And also this fight just sort of visually reminds me a lot of Shadows of Yharnam. So like a multi-boss fight with these guys who you can stagger pretty easily. It looks like there's 3 of them. So we might be getting a little Shadows of Yharnam redux, which is always fun because I love that boss fight. Those are cool enemies. Another thing here that we're seeing is a new weapon type of these dual throne daggers, which look like they have a lot of stagger potential. And I can't tell if these are doing black flame damage. They might be, which, that fits right in with a build that I have right now. So I would love to pick these things up. Or if that's just like what the, quote unquote, the blood looks like when it's coming off of like one of these shadow type enemies. And then another thing that was pointed out in Quailag's stream is that you can see the bed chamber drapery up here, and it almost looks like it's like gathering and falling on some of these buildings, which I think would be really cool if it's not just a skybox element, but it is actually like, it is like you can interact with it or see it in the real world. Here's the, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is, but it looks really cool. We've got more of these lions here. This looks like that boss that was featured earlier, so he might be an important character. This, to me, looks like... so the Bewitching Branch, you can get enemies on your side. This, to me, looks like a mass version of the Bewitching Branch. So getting a group of enemies to fight for you instead of fighting against you or to, like, de-aggro them. I could be wrong about that. It just sort of reminds me of that, like visually what it looks like. It's purple, and that's usually associated with sleep and Saint Trina. Okay, so this is my favorite thing in the whole trailer. Oh my god. Please, let me make this build. This is the only build that I'm going to use, is the fancy footwork guy, the monk Shaolin style hand-to-hand combat dude. It looks so clean. I mean, just look at this. I hope it's not just one item and one attack. I really hope you can make an entire build focused around this, like Senpo kick, Sekiro style kind of thing. Just, oh, it's so cool. It's so rad. So I'm going to be trying to find that like first thing when I play this DLC, because I want to make a character around this so bad. It looks like you can also craft giant bombs and just throw them at people, which is also pretty cool, I guess. Now, so this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. This area here, it looks beautiful, and it just looks like Limgrave. It's green, grass, trees, forests. Looks very visually different from this right here, which is almost more reminiscent of like Caelid with like the burning sky. So we're going to be getting a lot of different types of environments here. And something that I'm just noticing actually is that this guy looks like he has the prisoner helm, and it looks like his buddies back there do too. That like helmet, like the full face covering helmet with just the holes for eyes and mouth. So maybe we'll learn a little bit more about, what that mask means. Because I know the prisoner character is like you're like an imprisoned Carian noble or something like that. But this guy rocks. I want this armor so bad for every strength build ever. That's just going to be the standard. Get ready to see every single person using this in co-op and in PvP. And he's got a machine gun crossbow. Just, all right, let's go. Let's do it. Here is what I think we're seeing is like a new incantation. It really looks like Grail's Roar, but it's a bear with horns coming out of it and red hair. So something that's associated with Radagon. In the game files, the Misbegotten are called Radagon's children, I think. So we might be learning a little bit more about what that actually means and how they are associated with him. This area looks really, really cool. So we have this fight going on, this person in red clothes with dual curved swords. We know there's a blue dancer who taught Melania how to sort of contain the scarlet rot, taught her this, way of fighting that's like flowing water, and flowing water clears away impurity and stagnation. But now here we have a red dancer in a blue field, so I'm sure there's some sort of connection there. Don't quite know what it is, but there's something going on here. And I just want to draw your attention to these big structures back here. There's been a lot of people talking about what are these? Like, what exactly are we looking at here? Some people have said ships, which I think is potentially true. But honestly, what this reminds me of is the coffins that you can find. So the coffins and the little graveyards that are protected by wolves, where you can pick up runes and things like that. They're scattered all throughout the lands between, and to me, at least this in the background, almost looks like a giant version of that coffin. And we also have some gravestones here, so I'm wondering what exactly this place is. Here we've got Gravity Magic guy riding a boar. Looks incredible. And so this is what I was saying earlier. This looks like the base of that tree, and it looks like you can almost go underneath it and inside of it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's sort of where some type of poison swamp area is. Maybe where all of the, if this really is like a deathroot tree strangling another tree, where all of that sort of deathroot and poison is gathering. So lots of beasts and lots of stuff that looks like the Crucible stuff, horns and tails and claws and feathers and things like that. And then he has this really cool attack that, again, in one of these other images that was released that we didn't get in the trailer, it shows the player character using this incantation. So they actually sort of go down to the ground and shoot a bunch of spikes out of their back like a porcupine. And so that's, there's going to be more of these like Crucible incantations that we can get, it looks like. Okay. Now, this guy is very interesting to me. It's hard to really get a good look at him, but like, man, this reminds me so much of the humanity sprites from Dark Souls 1. Just the two little dots for eyes on sort of a black face. And he's riding a horse that's like congealing into the mud and kind of the muck beneath him. And he's also wielding something that looks like what the Orphan of Kos uses. But he's throwing it, and it kind of like breaks the stance of this person here. They're using the confessor garb. But yeah, like, who is this guy, right? He doesn't look like anything else we've ever seen in the base game. And I just have no clue. I mean, I think what this means is that we're going to have underground areas, right? Clearly, it seems like there's going to be an above ground and an underground element to the DLC. I'm almost wondering if this is maybe the only thing he really sort of reminds me of is like Astel. And I don't know why, but maybe this is something from like outer space. Okay, so God, this is like the gnarliest imagery I have ever seen from software put into a trailer or a game. This is the guy from that painting because he has the same little clasp for his cape here. And I mean, oh my God, just look at this. Like somehow this thing has impaled him. And so perhaps, Mesmer the Impaler has been here and has been, paying him a visit. But to me, this almost looks like a rune arc. So part of the Elden Ring was just like shoved inside of this guy, and he's trying to pull it out of him, and you can see his neck like extending there, and it's just, it's so metal. Like I really want to know who this guy is, because clearly something like awful has happened to him and his family, and he might be a key piece to sort of understanding the story that they're telling here. So then we get a glimpse here at a new weapon type as well. It's a dueling shield. This is actually a historical weapon that people used to use. And so, having a combination weapon and shield is pretty cool. And this character is also wielding a twin blade here. And something interesting about this twin blade, let's see if I can get a good picture of it. That's just him using the dueling shield. Okay, so here we can take a look. If you'll notice, half of it is missing on this side, and then it looks like half of it is also missing on the other side. Right? So we have something here, it looks like almost a black blade, and then we have like a gold blade right here. And there was a cut twin blade from the base game called the Twin Blade of Abundance and Decay, and it represented, the two sides of Melania and Mikola. And it was just like a cool weapon that you could get. Wasn't in the base game, but people sort of data mined and found it. So I'm wondering if this is maybe associated with that, and maybe if part of the game is going to be like restoring this weapon. So you have half of it here, but you need to go find the other part of the blade that seems to be missing. Just kind of a thought that I had when I was watching this. But this is what the fight with Mesmer looks like. And so you can kind of see here, those snakes are like growing out of him. He has this big leap attack. He's using this fire that doesn't really look like the fire in the base game, and it doesn't look like the frenzy flame either. It's sort of a different color. It's almost got this like darkness aspect to it. And then he can do this attack where he forces all these spears out of the ground here. And like I was saying earlier, I mean, these look a whole lot like the things that impale the giants in the mountaintops of the giants. So maybe he has something to do with that. And he calls it Mesmer's Flame. So maybe that's like a different type of fire or type of, pyromancy that we can get in this game. Also, look at this guy. He's so cute. He's just got like the cutest little face. I love the snakes that he's got. They're just, his character design is just so cool. So that's sort of what fighting with the dueling shield looks like there. And we have this person narrating. I think it's probably Mikola, but I'm not 100% sure, who's saying, touch the withered arm, travel to the realm of shadow. So yeah, like we're going to be we're going to be accessing this through that boss room, that Mohg's boss room. And then it looks like we have another like crucible incantation here with wings. We have one with like horns and tails and breath in the base game, but now we get to do that cool attack that the Crucible Knights can do, where you go up with the wings and then sort of launch yourself down. So yeah, that is that's the trailer, and those are some of my thoughts on the trailer. I'm really excited to see what else we get and what kind of other news we receive about this, because honestly, it looks so cool. Like, I never doubted that they were going to deliver something interesting and cool, but this just sort of confirms to me that, like, they know what they're cooking. They know what they're doing, and I totally trust them with this. June 21st, I'll be right there picking this game up. I'm going to just go offline for a good couple of weeks just to try and experience it myself. So there you go. Thanks for watching.